that was what you would call an interesting game. A lot to like, particularly the win. Things to be worried about. Things to be uncertain about. Things to be confused by. But it was a win. And we'll talk about it a bit more as soon as I go through that whole thing that you know so well by now, I hope. This is WVU Football Going Deep. I am Forrest Poston. Yeah, all right. And please share, subscribe, click the thumbs up button, click the notification bell, make comments, and tell your friends. Tell other people's friends. Now, I couldn't do a live show after the game. Got too much going on, and I wasn't sure just how my schedule was going to work out. But I do want to do a bit of a recap analysis. May take a closer look next week. We'll see. Defense we'll get to first, I guess. It is, coming into the game, it was the biggest question. And it was different. It was not fixed, but it was different. There were some of the same mistakes. Some of the problems were less evident, but there. Some of the coverage was not quite tight enough, but they were forcing Sorsby to throw into tighter windows most of the time, except for when they opened the door wide. But there was a different feel to the defense. I think Coons did bring pressure more often, maybe picked some better times to bring pressure. And it does seem that, he was calling some of the defenses differently. Sorsby was confused a number of times. And while they did let Sorsby get out of containment way too often, they also forced him into a couple of really bad mistakes. And Carrico was able, in one case, to reach back and just kind of scrape his hand in front of Sorsby and get the fumble. Now, a lot of people say, hey, Sorsby was West Virginia's MVP. Sorsby made stupid plays, blah, blah, blah. West Virginia forced those mistakes. It was good defense on those plays. Sorsby should not have made those mistakes, but he is, a redshirt sophomore. Maybe by next year or the year after, he wouldn't make those mistakes. But it's this year. So the defense caused more problems, and they had more luck, really. Things went West Virginia's way. A couple of calls that might have been called against West Virginia in the past weren't. There was a possible interference call. That flag got picked up, and the replay showed that, touched the player, but he did not really interfere with the player's opportunity to catch the ball. So some things went West Virginia's way. That's the sort of thing that does tend to balance out over a period of time. But overall, the defense, they came together when they needed to. They gave up a lot of yards. They weren't consistent still. They weren't as inconsistent, didn't make as many big mistakes as they have, and forced turnovers. And that was the balance. You can overcome mistakes with turnovers. And one less turnover, and West Virginia probably loses the game. But again, we got the turnovers. So the defense, you couldn't expect a complete fix, but I think we did see some shifting. Now, how much of that was just that extra edge you have sometimes in a difficult situation? Yeah, and again, firing Leslie could either make the defense play worse or give them a little incentive to play better. And I think the defense did come out and play better. Coons has a different type of energy, different psychology compared to Leslie, and I'm not saying one is better than the other. They are simply different. And sometimes that's the point of a firing. You just need a difference. And so, I think Coons's energy and psychology and, his general attitude helped. Is that a temporary effect, or is it something to build on? Well, we'll get a better hint of that next week. But the trend on the defense was in the right direction. Now, we have seen the defense have good games before. And it wasn't really a good game so much, it was good enough and a lot more forcing things to happen. Special teams has been not exactly a highlight, but it's been a positive all season. It became a highlight this week. Preston Fox, as usual, on punt returns, and he does not like to call for a fair catch. And he had, a good return and a really good return as a result. And then he was on kickoff returns in place of Traylon Ray and broke a nice long kickoff return when we needed it. Offense didn't take advantage of it, but at least it shifted field position. And, as usual, we had good punting, good coverage on punts, and we had really good coverage on kickoffs. There were several kickoffs that were touchbacks. They took one to, I think, the 27. Other than that, they were getting stopped 20 or inside. The ones like the 15 or something like that. And that is why you don't just kick touchbacks. You want to, make those stops. I've said it before. It is it's a risk. Yeah, well, but you make the stop and it gives you the psychological edge as well as field position edge. Now, offense. And this week, offense is by far the biggest negative. Started out fairly well. White was getting some nice runs up the middle, by the way. And this is part of why people say, why do they run White up the middle? Well, because White can run up the middle, especially in some of the little trap blocks and things. You spring a hole there and White is through it. Was working well, then, had a bad play, and Markiel was off. His feet were not steady. His throws were mostly high, except for the interception in the end zone, which was just a very short, very bad pass. Markiel was not the same quarterback we saw against Arizona. His accuracy was mostly terrible, except on long throws. Suddenly he's more like Garrett Green. He couldn't make the short throws, but had two perfectly thrown long passes down the sideline. One to Ray, one to Robinson. And we will talk about Robinson more in a moment or so. Coach Brown in his press conference said Markiel was not reading the defense as well. And one of my questions, and of course we don't get the camera work to know, was the problem Markiel not finding receivers or receivers not getting open? There were way too many times he was back there for a long, long time, couldn't find anybody, and waited too long to make the decision to run. And there were runs where the difference between Marchiol and Green was evident. That speed difference where Green probably would have gotten past the first tackler, Marchiol did not. And it's a balance that a quarterback has to work out right now. Or this game, Marchiol mostly came down on the wrong side, waiting too long. Now, sometimes there just wasn't any place really to run, but I find it hard to believe. Cincinnati was, dropping in coverage, but I still think our receivers, probably were getting open more than Marchiol was finding. Now, it's not going to be all on the quarterback. It never is. But, and of course, he's played in games, but he is still young. This is something to be expected. This is good for him in the long run. But right now, you can't say that Marchiol is, clearly the guy to take over. It's going to depend on how well Green comes back from his injury. But at this moment, there is no reason to say Marchiol is number one. Marchiol still has a ways to go. We have seen his potential. But he is still inexperienced. He's going to be up and down. Inconsistent. Name of the team. And could not get the running game going consistently after the first drive or two. And, then, you have a negative play, you have a missed pass. Hold on a moment. I got to go. Just got word that our missing cat has been caught. Well, I am back. I am additionally frazzled and sweaty. And it was also part of why I couldn't arrange a live show. One of our cats actually made an escape and has been missing for 10 days. And a neighbor realized she was living under their shed, and we took down a trap, and I just got the call that they had caught her. So we now have her back, and she is, for the time being, in one of the cage condos here in the computer room, while we get her on some medications and food until we can get her checked out by the vet. Now, I have no real idea where I was before I left. I'm not going to go back and check. I'll just splice it together. We'll settle for that, or I'll settle for that. But I know I was talking about the offense, offensive woes. There were some good things. Particularly Justin Robinson, who had 2 big catches. And he has been starting to come along. Beginning of the season, he was not really in football shape. Then he had a bit of an injury issue right after making a big catch. And so he's really just been getting going. And he does look to be here for the last part of the season, the weapon they were hoping he would be. On the defensive side, Anthony Wilson had a couple of really big stops. He usually tackles very well. The defense did have some sporadic tackling problems, but he's also the one who was in the spot to snag one of the passes that should not have been thrown, and took it 70-something yards for a pick 6. KK Tarnu also had a big game. Lots of tackles, including a really good stop on a 4th down when the large running back took a leap, I think maybe over Wilson, and Tarnu taught him why that is not really a good idea. For Torma Mulba, very big game. He's not getting as much credit as he should. He's had a heck of a season, and would be getting more notice if the defense had been having a better season overall. And Josiah Trotter, big game, especially big second half. Coming along as hoped. And remember, this is his first year playing, so that is a very good thing to see. But just kind of as a recap, there were some very good things in the game, some good stuff on special teams. Defense had some really good moments, definitely showed improvement, still inconsistencies, still some major breakdowns. Not as many, not as bad. One for a touchdown, but that's better than 2 for touchdowns. Oh, hate to put it that way, but it is still progress. But we have to see if they can put 2 together, and actually, will the things they started doing a bit better today be things they can build on for next week and for the rest of the season? We'll see how that goes. I am, again, Forrest Poston, and I have, as you might suspect, some cat business to take care of. Thanks for watching. I'll be back when there is significant news. Oh, and for those who did watch for this long, we did have an offensive lineman for the 2025 Class D commit, and dang it, right now I can't remember his name. He was sort of a stretch as a take. Was a guy who was showing significant promise before having a major season-ending injury. A lot of the major programs backed off on him at that point. West Virginia did not. But it appears that in the time after the injury, he has not come along as West Virginia hoped. So they have parted ways, and we'll see how it goes. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you later.